Welcome back to the YouTube channel, guys, and this is actually another video on this particular car. You would have seen, and I'll pop up a link and also in the description below, of this car coming in recently, and you would have seen it featured on our YouTube channel. This Mercedes C-Class had an upgraded sub added to the system to add some bass. However, as you could tell in that video, so if you haven't watched it, make sure you go check that out. When we actually listened to the car, you could really tell, obviously the bass sounded absolutely incredible, but the front end a little bit lacking. So that's all about to change. The client has decided to come in again and for more work. So what we're going to be doing is upgrading the front and rear speakers and soundproofing it. So today is a little bit of a combination. Obviously hopefully you've seen the video before about the sub. So I'll just pop open the boot quickly, just so you can see this. So this is a little bit dark in there, but that is the 12-inch sub mounted into a custom box that we built in-house, all bolted down, and then you've got a Hertz ML Power 1 amp, which powers that all underneath the floor. So what have we actually got inside the vehicle? So from stock, we are still using currently the stock head unit, but that might be a later upgrade that our client might do. This is the factory tweeter location. There's no mid-range location, but they do have a mid-bass in the bottom of the door. Then over to the rear speakers, we've got a grille at the top and then again a mid-bass location. However, this is fully covered. There's not actually any perforation in that grille to allow for sound to come through. And when we remove that, I bet there's nothing behind there. So you've got a two-way front end and in essence coaxial rear. So that is the configuration of speakers in the car. Over to some of the products that we've got going into the car. These are kind of fundamental areas that we're working with. So firstly, soundproofing, an incredibly important part. What soundproofing does is basically a 3mm layer, and later on in the video I'll show you how that's actually applied and the correct process in doing so. But what skin soundproofing is, it's a 3mm layer. It's a bit bigger than an A4 page, as you can see. And what it does is it builds a better environment for the system to work in, as well as it reduces road noise and stops rattle. So really important part, fundamental part of doing a system. We see so many installs that have been done where clients are disappointed with the system, and it's mostly because of the lack of the importance of people explaining how important this stuff is. The other thing that's really important is obviously getting your products right, but also how your install is actually done. Some of the components that I'm going to run through with you now. Firstly is the amp. So this is the power of the system. So this is something called an Audison SR 4.500. It's a 4-channel amp that's going to be running the front speakers as well as the rear speakers. I'll grab a set of the rears out for you in a second. But what you've got here in terms of the Audison SR4 is a 4-channel amp. It's Class D amplifier, 880 watts total power output of this thing. So really important that the power is really nicely balanced with the speakers that we're using, which for the front end are the Audison Voce set. We've got the Audison Voce tweeter. We're going to be using a crossover and then a mid-bass in the bottom of the door. This is all going to be completely hidden, which is really nice and exactly what our client wanted. Then for the rear speakers, as a coaxial design, we're going to be using the Audison PRIMA rear coaxial, so a 6.5-inch mid-bass with a tweeter, in essence, built in to the same design. So in essence, like this, the tweeter will be sitting inside the mid-bass woofer, kind of a bit like a combination. So that's going to be for the rear doors, which we'll go through when we're actually doing the install, and I'll show you then. But a bit of an overview of the product. So we've got front rear speakers going in, a two-way front end, we've got a crossover, and then obviously the PRIMA rears, all powered from that Audison SR4. If you have any questions, guys, make sure you drop us in the comment below. Just let us know any questions you have about why we do certain things and how we do certain stuff. I'm more than happy to come back to you on there. But there's a bit of an overview of the system. So this is actually designed as one of our packages from our website, but tweaked slightly. Obviously, the client came in originally and had that sub done. So that's enough of kind of a bit of an overview. Let's move on and strip the car down and get the system sounding absolutely amazing. So with the door card now removed, what you've actually gained access to is you can now see the actual speaker itself. As you can already tell just by this very, very cheap design. I mean, I'm pressing in here and just look at it. It's already flexing quite a lot. So that's a very cheap paper cone design. What I'm going to do is when this is actually out of the car, I'll do a bit of side-by-side comparison between this and the Audison Voce, so you can kind of see exactly what manufacturers are actually fitting in terms of the speakers. Because this is hidden behind that lovely door panel, you don't see it, and that's why the quality of this just doesn't match the rest of the lovely interior that you've got in the car. Also, what you'll note here is that all of this is all riveted on. Obviously, what we do when we're doing an install is obviously soundproofing, which is essential. What we're going to be doing is fully removing them, drilling them out, and then actually soundproofing behind that panel. All of this panel will be soundproof as well, which of course will show you the whole process of. But once this is all soundproofed, it's going to sound a lot more solid, get rid of those rattles. And if I knock on here, you'll hopefully be able to hear this. So I'll do a little knock test after as well, so you can hear the difference of how solid that will become. But this is all going to be completely removed. We'll be adding soundproofing behind this layer and then the back of the door card. There's 35 sheets of soundproofing to go in across the front and rear doors. But yeah, overall, we're going to be 3D printing an adapter. So we'll also show you that process and the reasons why we actually use 3D printed adapters, which I'll show you a bit later on in today's video. But it's time to get cracking. We'll remove this and soundproof the whole panel. And I'll join Ryan a little bit later on to film the rest of the process. So as you can see, the inner door skin is now removed. And what have we got behind it? Nothing. Basically, you just got sheet metal, and that's half of the problem with cars nowadays. You literally get no soundproofing as stock. Oh, but hold on, what is this black panel here? Let's move in a little bit closer and show you what you actually get. So this is what the manufacturer has decided that soundproofing is. Basically, I don't know how well that's coming across. Basically a little mat that's been stuck onto a panel, but just listen to it. I'm going to knock on it and you'll be able to hear how it actually sounds. So there's a very, very slight difference in that panel, but incredibly tinny. So this all needs to be corrected. Now removing this panel, yes, it is a little bit more work. However, it's well worth doing because look how much access we now have to add the soundproofing in. This is why people travel all over the country, all over the world. I mean, this car is relatively local. However, this car just here is all the way from Washington. So literally all over the world. That's pretty impressive, when there will be a full video on that car when it gets started. But yeah, behind here, literally nothing at the moment. So once this is all soundproofed, I'll show you a little bit of the process halfway through so you can see kind of how we do it and also the reasons why we do it. So as you can see here, you've got the silver soundproofing, which is a 3mm skins layer being applied right into the cavities over there and spreading across this door. So obviously this is the non-soundproof panel. It's still pretty tinny over here, and that's why having full coverage of soundproofing makes a hell of a difference. And already there, it's really nice and solid. So we've heated up the soundproofing, and now we're applying it into all of these cavities and manipulating the actual soundproofing by cutting it. So it's really important in terms of what you need to actually install soundproofing is obviously, like as Ryan's doing at the moment, a roller, a heat gun, plus obviously a really sharp knife or standing blade to actually cut the soundproofing to give it a nice clean edge. It just makes everything nice and neat and tidy. But rolling it on and having a clean surface behind there is really important. But now this area is fully soundproof. We've still got a little bit more to do right into those corners. But overall, first of all, it looks really nice, but now it's really deadened. Creating basically what soundproofing does is, what this is doing by applying it to all these key areas is, as you heard by knocking there, it makes it a lot more solid. This also reflects sound waves, keeping them inside the vehicle. So this, all our systems we do are all about you experiencing the sound. So that's why soundproofing is so important. Keeps all of the audio inside the car, makes that investment really worthwhile. So it's a really fundamental part of doing a system. So I'll let Ryan carry on and not drop the soundproofing. But otherwise, we'll join him a little bit later on when we can actually see the panel back on and that bit being soundproofed. So what you can see here is more soundproofing being applied to this inner panel here. So this is what holds your window regulator and also where the speaker will actually mount to. So a really important part, obviously behind the speaker is really important as well. A speaker does play both ways, sound comes out both ways, the front and back. So having waves pushed back into the car is really important. So what you've got here is obviously the heat being applied to the actual panel itself, then being rolled on. This makes everything a lot more sticky and adhere to the actual panel itself. But once I've shown you this, I'm now going to show you the actual door card itself. So on the back of the door card itself, again, applying soundproofing is in key areas that are going to reduce rattles and resonations. Obviously, depending on how much spec our client's gone for in terms of soundproofing will depend on where we're applying soundproofing to. Depending on the budget and depending on the amount of soundproofing that is being applied, we'll put it into key areas that are basically more rattly. So we go through and check all this. One other thing that we will be doing is these little clips. So you see how they move around slightly. We actually remove every single one of these, and then we're going to be cloth taping them to making them even more secure, nice and tight in there, so they're not rattling around as well. It's just an extra mile that we go just to make sure everything sounds as amazing as humanly possible. Obviously, again, here you've got a large area of panel work being covered by the skin's 3mm layer, doing its job and really making it sound absolutely incredible. It's now time to show you guys a bit of a side-by-side comparison, like I said I would do. You've got the Audison Voce mid-bass here, phenomenal bit of kit. So this is the new mid-bass that's going into the front doors, and this is what was in the car before. So, and that's a top shot, just so you can easily see the quality difference. But let's flip it over and see what you get when that goes over. So now that's flipped over. Just have a look here. So I'm going to bring the camera down so you can see the difference in the magnet size, plastic structure here, full metal structure here, and yeah, it's going to be a massive difference in mid-bass performance. But how are we going to get this speaker actually into the same location as this? You'll note that this speaker, the actual housing itself, is slightly egg-shaped, and the screw positions are all slightly different on each corner. So what we're actually done here, you can see the drawing of the actual CAD work that we've done for the 3D printed adapter. Later on, I'm going to actually show you what it looks like when it's printing. So this is all completely designed in-house. This allows to go into the exact same location as the factory speaker holes, so they sit perfectly in there. Plus those holes in here, these ones and these ones, all four, are for the Audison Voce mid-bass. But yeah, overall, really happy with the final results of this design. So we're going to be printing the first one, test fitting it, just making sure it all fits really nice and perfectly, and then we'll be getting them installed into the vehicle. So the printer is now doing its thing. We brought PLA filament inside. What this little unit does is pretty cool. It keeps it all up to temperature, and also what it does is it removes the moisture from the actual filament as well, giving everything a lot more of a rigid kind of end product at the end of everything. So what you've got there is it working its way, and we'll show you obviously the finished result. This print is around about a 7-hour print to do one adapter. So once this is all done, we'll test fit it and then print the second adapter. So here we have the finished result of the 3D printed adapter. This is for the Mercedes, and as you can see, it is incredibly solid. Like, it's incredibly solid. So the reason why we use 3D printed adapters is mostly because of two things. Firstly is the fact of how reversible we can make a system. You'll note that the speaker adapter is exactly the same size as the factory one in terms of the screw positions. The reason why that is so this baffle can come out of the car and the stock speaker can go back in whenever our client decides to sell the car, which makes the system fully reversible. So it's an investment into the kit itself. So make sure you head over to our website, check out the packages that we've got on our website, because there's loads of stuff on there of different systems, and all our systems we list are fully reversible. We always do that on our installs. The other really cool thing and reason why we use these baffles is because of what's called mid-bass transfer. If a mid-bass indoor is bolted down correctly, really nice and solid, soundproofed well, you're going to have a far better mid-bass response in the vehicle. That's measured when we actually run the analysis on computer systems, on the DSP side of things, to make sure everything is performing exactly how it should, and we're getting the frequency response that we need from the speaker itself. So now I'm going to show you it actually going into the vehicle and what it looks like with the finished results. So let's quickly give you guys a bit of an update. So rear door cards are off, and these are the speakers that you've got in here. Again, Very, very cheap design, but you've got some, this is what's called a coaxial speaker, so you've got a tweeter as part of the design. Again, these are all riveted in, so these will all be taken off, soundproof behind. As you can see here, we've got the skin soundproofing. This was all actually applied when we installed the sub amp, and that is part of the wiring that we're doing at the moment. So we've got the Audison SR4, which is going to be running front and rear speakers, and then we've got the Hertz ML Power 1, which will run at 12-inch sub as it did before. What we've got inside here is a fully soundproof panel now, but what we also have is the new, the old cone there, so that's going to be removed, and those 3D printed adapters are going to be making their way into the vehicle with those new upgraded speakers. So let's show you the finished results in here. So obviously we've got soundproofing being applied, we've got the little XT60 connectors as well, which is really important. Plus the baffle is now in, and just look how good this is. This is the Audison Voce 6.5-inch mid-bass. With the way that we've soundproofed it, the way that everything is bolted in, obviously you saw earlier that we have basically removed this whole section here and then re-riveted everything in, so it looks basically like we've never been there, other than obviously the soundproofing. But that mid-bass transfer into the vehicle is going to be really helped, not only by the actual baffle that we built and the density of that baffle, but also just how we're doing an install, soundproofing it all properly. So that's a little bit of an overview of there, but I can't wait to, at the end of the video, I'll actually be sitting in the car and listening to the system, hopefully replicating kind of what it sounds like. But the systems, if you're interested in having an audio upgrade done, make sure you come by and see us, because we can actually go through things in a lot more detail. Plus you can listen to a car in person. It's far, far better than obviously listening to something on YouTube. Also, whenever you are listening to any of our videos, make sure you are using headphones, because phone speakers just don't do the system justice. You'll notice a big difference when you are listening on headphones rather than from your phone speakers. But let's carry on with the rest of the install, and we'll see you a little bit later on. So what Carl's doing at the moment is basically mounting the amplifiers. We've got two amplifiers in the system. First of all is the Hertz ML Power 1. That's running the 12-inch sub. Then underneath that, so it's going to be basically a stack of amplifiers. Underneath that, the Audison SR 4.500. That is going to be running front and rear speakers. On this occasion, to get the most out of the system, what we're doing is running into crossovers. I've explained that in previous videos, but in essence, what it is it kind of splits the channels across the front. So we've got a tweeter, a mid-bass, as well as rear speakers all running from that 4-channel amplifier. As you can see, all the cable is really nicely run, all braided cabling. And what we're doing is just carpeting everything, making sure everything is neat and tidy. Not only, this is pretty much never going to be seen, it's just a little bit of detail that we go to when installing a system, because it's one of those things, it's our pride in our work that we carry out. So the Hertz ML Power 1 amplifier will sit on top of that Audison SR4. There's plenty of breathing room. These amps are designed to pretty much be buried underneath stuff. The factory floor will sit on top of all of this, so you're never going to see it pretty much. The 12-inch sub will sit on top of the floor in that box like you probably saw in the previous video where this car featured. But yeah, the system is going to sound really nice and loud, crisp. You've got the volume of that front end now, which was really necessary. Plus, obviously, you've got the massive bass output from the Hertz ML Power 1 powering that 12-inch sub from the Hertz sub as well. So for the front end of the speakers, we're using Audison. For the bass side of things, we're using the Hertz set. But yeah, overall, we'll show you the finished results when we're all done. And then what we'll do is have a listen to it so you can hear exactly how it sounds. So before we finally get to listen to the system, I want to go through something we call a knock test, showing you the difference soundproofing makes. It is very difficult to showcase this on video, and that's why we came up with a knock test, just to go through and kind of hear the difference. So I'm going to go through a knock on this panel, which is non-soundproof, then knock on the door here, which is now fully acoustically soundproof using the Skin's 3 Mille layer. And I'm going to move my mic closer just so you can hear it. So this is the non-soundproof panel. So you can probably hear that very tinny. And then over to this panel, completely deadened. I mean, that is a massive difference. And over to, again, this one, just so you can compare. So yeah, this is now keeping audio inside the car, reducing road noise, and building a better environment for that new system to work in. But that is enough for that. Let's jump in the car and let's have a listen. It's time for the sound test. Grab your headphones if you don't already have them and enjoy. So finally, let's have a listen to it. Obviously, we are using the stock radio here. Obviously, that can be upgraded and it's probably the next step for our client to complete. Hopefully this comes across well on camera. If you ever do want to listen to a system, make sure you come by and see us. But let's hear how it sounds. Let's go. So hopefully that's come across well on camera. I mean, this system sounds absolutely lovely. It's got a massive difference in volume, which is what our client was after, but also that kind of punch now towards the front end of the car. Obviously everything is hidden behind stock location. So we've got the tweeters in behind those grills there. We've got the mid basses in the front of the door. So we've got two-way front end. We've got the rear speakers in there as well. But yeah, overall, really happy with the final results. It sounds really nice and punchy now. Obviously the sub as stage one was a really nice first step to kind of stage the install. We've not wasted any money on product at all. We're reusing everything. And the best thing about this system is whenever our client decides to sell the car, it can all come out and move to another car. So investment is really into the kit itself, and that's why every system designed on our website, right up to the very top end systems, are fully reversible. We always do it in that way, so you're keeping the investment in terms of that money going into product all intact, and you can keep moving that from car to car, so you always have a great sounding car. But thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Smash that subscribe button, and we look forward to seeing you on the next upgrade.